Okay, here's the camera itself. It's a pretty small, portable model. It's kind of at the high end of the consumer line that JVC has. And what's nice about this camera is that it's a video camcorder, so it can shoot several different video formats in HD. It's also a still photo camera. It has some of the kinds of controls and settings you might see on your point and shoot or a DSLR a still camera, but again, it's also got the video features as well. On the back of the camera, there's also a little hood that can flip out, and that allows me to see the LCD monitor, so I can monitor my shot, also go into the camera's menu from there, or I can shoot by looking through the electronic viewfinder. The only other main pieces you're going to find in here are your lavalier mics, your wireless mic kit. You'll have a transmitter and a receiver. Receiver goes on the camera, transmitter goes on you if you're doing a stand-up for the camera, or whoever you're interviewing. There's also a power supply battery charger inside the kit. It's kind of on the opposite end from where the wireless mics are, so just flip the kit around and you'll open up a side pouch, and that's where you'll find the battery charger and a little cable that plugs into the camera. This is if you're out in the field and you've had the camera checked out overnight and your battery runs down, you can just plug the camera in, leave the battery in the camera, and then just plug this unit into, well, one end right into the wall socket or your outlet, and then the other end, the small one, you just plug that into the camcorder just below the mic inputs, mic, headphone, and then down below that there's a little power input. Of course, another important thing to know is how to get the SDHC card in and out of the camera. And I might have mentioned that you pull this LCD down and you notice that you see that battery compartment, and again open up that door, and that's where we also find the place for the SDHC card. So it's pretty simple, just face it with the little indented or the notch facing inward, and just look for the little slot. You'll find it right there. Push the card in, give it a good little push, and you'll feel it kind of click into place. And there you go. Then just remember to close the battery flap, and then the LCD monitor you can then adjust to whatever the proper shooting angle is that you need, and open it up and you're good to go. Just collapse those little doors down and I can push it all back into place. Remember, a couple of important rules. When you're about to put the SDHC card in the camera, make sure the camera is powered off. The power button is just right up here near the electronic viewfinder, right there. So make sure the power button is off and that everything's shut down. Then you can put the battery in, you can put the card in. When you're done shooting, turn everything back off. Power off, then you can open up the back door and pull the battery, eject the battery. You can also then eject your card, and that can simply be done by going back here and just finding the card and give it a quick little push, let go, and it'll sort of gently pop out of place. Okay, the first order of business is to get the wireless receiver attached to the camcorder. Best way to do that is to attach it to the shoe. Yes, that's S-H-O-E, just like a shoe that you would wear, but on the camcorder, it's this little accessory shoe that we're looking at right here, just behind the focus ring, up there along the lens. So we just connect the receiver right to that shoe, and it just slides into place. You'll see on the bottom of the receiver, there's a little sort of black plastic piece that just slides right into the shoe. Once you slide that into place, and you just tighten the little screw underneath the receiver, and that's connected to the shoe, so it's nice and secure. The audio input, or the mic input, is right here in these little plastic flaps. You've got to just gently pull it aside, and there are two, one on top of the other. The first one, the one on top, is the mic input. That's the first one, and the second one is for your headphones. So let's just put the mic right into the top slot, give it a nice good shove, push it into place. You'll hear it kind of snap into place, and then I would connect my headphones right to the input just below that. Of course, the wireless transmitter would go right on the person that you're interviewing. It's just got a little clip-on that you could almost fasten to their belt, or probably a good piece of their clothing, somewhere in the pocket, their belt, pants pocket, something like that. That just clips on. Okay, with the transmitter properly hooked up, you just got to make sure you turn it on. You've got two frequency choices here, F1, a frequency 1, and a frequency 2. You want to make sure that whatever you put the transmitter on, 1 or 2, that your receiver is also tuned to the same frequencies. Okay, now we got to make sure that the wireless receiver is also tuned to the same frequency. So instead of off, let's just flip it over to F1. And you notice I've got a little green light that pops on. So that shows me that they are tuned to each other. This one is now receiving the signal coming from that transmitter. They're both on the F1 frequency.
Okay, we've got everything hooked up, both the wireless receiver and the wireless transmitter, both on the same frequency. So now I just want to go to the back side of the camcorder, and I want to gently pull this LCD out, not just the hood attachment yet. I want to make sure that the whole thing just sort of tilts forward. I'm just going to, just like I'm going to put the battery in or put my memory card in, just tilt it forward just so I can give it some space between the LCD and the electronic viewfinder. Then I'm going to just lift the hood out a little bit. So let's look at that again. It's basically just pulling the LCD forward a little bit and then lifting out the hood, so that this will give me a chance to tilt the monitor where I can see it, and so I can get a much better look at what's on the screen, and this will allow me to check my audio levels. Okay, now we can look inside the LCD and see all of our settings or indicators up on the screen. So the next order of business is to simply look right down there. I know it's a little hard to see, but down in the lower left you can kind of see a left channel, right channel audio. So what that's going to do is tell me how my mic is coming in. So I'm now talking into that wireless lavalier mic. Notice it's only feeding in to the left channel, and that's okay. We can fix that when we get into editing, and we can double that up so it goes to both left and right channel. But I'm actually checking my audio level, and it's not bad. What I'm looking for is those green bars to appear, and then one or two just pops into the red ever so slightly. If I see it pegged to the red all the time, then I'm going to be clipping or distorting the audio. I'm going to be overmodulated. Just keep your eyes on that, and also listen constantly with those headphones to not only get the volume level but also the quality of the sound. So that's a quick check of the audio level. Hooking up the microphone, follow those steps, and you're going to be much better off and get higher quality sound on a more consistent basis. Well, now it's time to do the white balance with this camcorder. I recommend just switching to one of the manual settings and customizing your white balance. So in order to do that, let's just flip the dial around. We'll go to full manual, and that's just simply the letter M, and I just line it up with that little line down there. Now I'm in manual mode, and then I can simply go back to my LCD monitor and check my settings. And in order to do that, again, I just want to gently make sure the monitor sort of slid forward a little bit so it's away from that old electronic viewfinder. And let's just flip open the doors here on the hood and get a closer look at this. Okay, we're looking at the LCD, and all our indicators would be up on the screen. Notice we have a lot more choices now. We have a shutter speed setting of 1/60th of a second. We have an f-stop that's talking about our exposure or our aperture setting. So these are all things I could now go in and adjust manually. Let's just look quickly at the white balance. In order to get there, I do have to push the menu. So I push the record settings, and notice I've got a bunch of choices, and there's white balance right up front. Let's just push that in, and we'll get into the white balance menu. Now notice what it's highlighted right now is that sort of looks like two triangles with a square above it, and it's highlighted in yellow, so it's already set on the manual option. There's A for just a full auto balance. That sunshine icon is for a preset value. It sort of estimates daylight color balance, a cloudy sky day. Then you can also go through a few custom balances, a warmer or a cooler type of light. All your lights, again, as we've talked about, give off different colors. So the best way to get it just right is to just simply do it manually. And I'm already there. So if I were to push through these menus, notice how it changes the color even as I push through. I'm pushing these arrows on the side. That just goes through the different presets. So let's go back to the beginning, and we'll go back to our little manual symbol. And notice what I've got up on the wall. It's just simply a white envelope. So I'm going to adjust the camcorder so that I zoom in all the way, fill the screen with as much white as possible, focus the shot there, get it as good a focus as I can. And now I simply have to push the button that says set. So it's going to go in manually and read all that, and it's going to set my balance. Takes a second, adjust the color just a little bit. Now let's pull out. Okay, now we have a manual white balance. My blue wall looks blue, and my white envelope does look pretty good. Now we're going to look at the steps to do a manual exposure setting, or just to look at our brightness levels and at least give ourselves a good indication of whether we've got the shot properly exposed or not. Again, I'm doing this very simply, where I've just got the camera pointed at a wall. I've got a white envelope tape there that I've just done a balance on for color. Now I want to check my brightness and contrast. Notice that when I'm in manual mode, I see these little lines. You zoom in there a little bit tighter, and you see those lines look like zebra lines on the envelope and the bright parts of the screen. Those are a little feature that you can turn on or off through the menu. I'll go back to the menu, record setting, If you're in the manual shooting mode, again, learn how to do this manually. That way you really customize the shot, get exactly the right exposure and white balance that you need. And it's what you'd want to do as a professional with a much more sophisticated camera. So we just did balance. Here's the zebra feature. I'll punch that up. And I can turn it off so that I don't see these zebra lines, or I can put it at 70 to 80%. So what that's going to tell me is that whenever I see those lines on the screen, that part of the shot, meaning the top of the envelope and sort of in along the crease there, in between the blocks on the wall, it looks almost like crawling ants too, or zebra stripes. Those spots on the screen are exposed to 70 to 80% brightness. There's this whole brightness scale from 0 being totally in the black, 100 being like totally bleached out, pure white. So between 0 and 100 we have this scale, and we want to typically see these zebras at between 70 and 80%. The reason we do that is when we expose a person's skin, we're shooting a face for an interview, and they're seated in the chair, and we've got them framed up nicely. I want to see just a little bit of these zebra lines on the bright part of their face. If the light is hitting their cheek or on the forehead or the tip of the nose, and I've got that brightest spot, if I see a little bit of zebra right in that area, assume this was a person's face, then I would have a pretty well exposed shot. So the zebra features, it doesn't show up on the recorded video, it's just in the monitor for reference, just to use to evaluate. But turn that feature on when you're in a manual shooting mode and look at your subject, whether it's an object, a physical object, or a person, and make sure you've got a little bit of zebra on the bright part. And in that 70 to 80% range, that's a good area to have the exposure. Notice also I can go through my settings here. I've got a shutter speed setting right up there, and I can toggle this there's a little exposure button on the front of the camcorder. When I punch it in, it toggles back and forth from shutter speed down to f-stop. Now shutter speed, I don't want to mess with that too much. Let's leave that at 1/60th of 100, or 1/60th of a second, excuse me. And that's going to be good for video. I don't really need to change it. If I go too low on that or too slow, I'll get real stuttery effects in the video and it's not going to look good. So I'll leave that there and I'll push the exposure button. I'll toggle down to my f-stop. This is going to allow me to adjust my brightness. So if I notice that my zebra lines are just filling up the person's face, they're totally overexposed, almost too high or too bright on that scale, I can go in and punch that and then turn the little thumb wheel and I can start to darken the shot. Notice how my zebra lines have really disappeared. Let's boost it back up. See, we have about a third of the envelope covered in zebras now, and we're at f1.2. That's a small number, a low number, so it means the iris is wide open. It's as open as I can get it right now in this setting. And if I go to a higher number, turning the wheel, I close the iris. A higher number means I'm letting less light come into the camera lens. So at f5.6, I've almost reduced the zebras. So that's a way you can kind of tweak it. If you need to adjust, look at the person's face. Let's just assume that envelope is a person's face. And I want to maybe get the zebra lines to just about, of course this is a pure white envelope. Not many people are going to have skin this exact color. So skin tones vary and fluctuate. You got a wide variety of complexions and skin colors. So keep that in mind. On a darker complected skin, you're not going to see as many zebras. On somebody with fairer skin, you'll see a little bit more. But tweak it to where you just have the tiniest bit. I'll go to about, I think in this condition, if I had a person sitting right there, I'd go to about in the 3s, 3.2, 2.8, somewhere in there would probably be about right. And I'd have just the right exposure, a little bit of zebra line on their face. And that's just simply by pushing the exposure button, toggling away from shutter down to the f-stop, and then do your adjustments there.